Hey guys, what's up? Joey here. All right, this is my second take I'm making this video. The first time I did it, I messed up big time, so I'm doing this again. However, the good thing is, since I already did a practice run, I'm gonna do this video a little quicker than I did the first time. All right, so in this video, what I want to show you is basically how to shorten your video and also how to cut out what I call like the dead gaps, right? So when people are talking, obviously they take a pause, right, to catch their breath, or they stop and think of what they're about to say and stuff. So those little pauses kind of slows down the momentum of your video, right? So to keep your video kind of like on a fast track, to keep it moving and all this stuff, pretty much I figured out a way to cut out those little dead gaps in a manner that's quick, add the transitions and all that stuff, but using macros and all that. Before, I did it all manually, I'll get the blade tool and, make cuts and whatnot. But as you can imagine, doing that on a 15-minute video or whatever, it can take forever. So it's not a good plan to go by, right? To do it manually. So what I discovered is basically using the new Premiere Pro feature, which is the Essential Sounds, feature, right? The first thing you want to do is basically, obviously, get a rough cut going, right? Pretty much cut out all the mistakes or whatever, the pauses or whatever. Get that done. Pretty much when you're happy with like the timeline, that's when you want to start doing this process, right? It's more towards the end when you're happy with it, because you got to make a lot of cuts. So if you want to switch something around towards the end and you've made a bunch of cuts, it's going to be more difficult. So make sure you do this step once you're happy with your edit. You're just doing this kind of like as an extra to shorten the video and also to speed up the momentum, right? I'm just going to use this part of like the video. It's kind of like towards the end. I'll pause the video. So as I zoom in here.
Filter over on this side for these three fans. I left in the orientation they are purely for aesthetics. So don't.
Okay, so you can see him talk, right? He's talking, he's all like, hey guys, how's it going? Like those little pauses. I'm exaggerating, but I'm trying to make a point that like pretty much what I want to do is I want to cut out the little areas where he takes a break or he stops and thinks about what he's about to say, right?
Cables. Other.
All right, so the first thing you want to do is basically you want to go to Windows, go audio track mixer, and select your sequence. Now, I already made a video on this. I'm not going to go into too much detail, so I'll put a link to that video of mine that you can check out. But pretty much what you want to do is you want to like add filters to the track one here. Oh, by the way, if you get this, see like the filter options up here. Click on this little triangle and you'll get this, right? Then you get a bunch of little pull down windows here. You can add your like reverb and echo and compression and all that stuff, right? Again, I'm not going to mess with this too much, but what I will say is I add a parametric equalizer. And what I did was,
unless you watch,
basically I cut out like all the low frequencies that are underneath 100 hertz and high frequencies that are up in the 12,000 area. Basically, they're frequencies that are not necessary for the audio for Paul when he's speaking. Usually it's a lot of low bass, like room tones that you don't need and stuff like that. So yeah, you want to clean up your audio first before doing the next step. So again, I'll have a link in the descriptions or somewhere in the video. You guys can check that out. So once that's done, basically we need to add a audio file to tell Essential Sounds. Again, let's go to Window, Essential Sounds. What it's going to do is it's going to generate keyframes. That way, when there's a pause in the dialogue, it's going to create a keyframe to fill in that gap with an audio, right? Which is, in this case, it's music, but it's not. We're going to use the bars and tone, right? So to get the bars and tone, you go down here, a new item, click on it, and it'll be right here, bars and tone. That's simply what it is, just bars and that high-pitched sound. Go to your timeline, deselect the video source patching from your audio layer, click audio down to audio level number 2, because we want to put this audio sound right underneath our dialogue. Now click and drag the bar tone underneath it. Line it up well, and let's click and drag. So if I play it,
the original video last month.
Like I said, it's a bars and tone, that high-pitched sound. So we want to mute that. We don't need to hear it, but we'll need the audio that it creates, right? Select your dialogue. And pretty much what you want to do is you want to tell Premiere Pro that what you just selected is dialogue, which it is. Now, the audio file, the bars and tone that you just created, click on that, go to your Essential Sounds again, and tell Premiere Pro that this is music. Now, yeah, it's not music, but pretty much we want is the options that it gives you. We want the ducking feature. Again, ducking pretty much is, when someone is talking and then they stop, the music fades in just to fill in that silence, right? And it does that by creating keyframes. And those are the keyframes that we need. So again, you want to make sure your audio is as clean as possible for this to work, for the best results. So the sensitivity, I leave it at 6. I want to reduce it by -48, just to be more noticeable. And the fade, let's just knock it down to the lowest setting possible, which is 50 milliseconds. I'm going to hit generate keyframes, and it shouldn't take that long. Okay, so that was quick. Now, depending on how long your timeline is, it's going to take a while. So if it's doing nothing, don't flip out. But, I just want to make this video as fast as possible. So I'm using this short little clip of like a pause project here. I'm going to maximize this so I can zoom in and show you what I'm doing. So by using that the ducking feature in Premiere Pro, I was able to create these keyframes, right? And it creates the keyframes in the areas where Paul takes a breath, he pauses, thinks of what he's about to say and all that.
3, which I am using the custom, just please bear that in mind, these pretty black cables. Other
as you can see, he does that. So I want to cut those out because throughout the video, those little gaps, they kind of add up and stuff like that. What I do, and this is something that you have to set up on your own, go to edit, then go to keyboard shortcuts. Then you say select next keyframe. Now I have it set up to this shortcut, but you can set it up to whatever you want. So you want to go to select next keyframe, add a shortcut, select previous keyframe, same thing. I'm going to mention the other shortcuts that I use that you also want to set up on your own that works for you. Now, again, I don't know if I mentioned this, but pretty much I'm using my Rocket Nith mouse, as you can see here. With my Rocket Nith, I'm able to create macros, and as you can see here, pretty much I have all these guys already set up, for my macros and all the good stuff. So if you don't have one, but if you're a gamer or if you have a gaming mouse, I got the feeling that most likely you have a mouse or some kind of keyboard or something that pretty much has some form of a macro on it, like an additional button that you can adjust. Yeah, try to mess with that, right? There are mouses not as expensive as a Rocket Nith that you can try out, but yeah, I do encourage to, if you're going to be an editor or aiming to edit faster, getting something with macros is going to be a massive help, right? Now, this is the shortcuts that I use to create my macro. So I have a shortcut to have the playhead jump to where the cursor is at. So playhead jump to cursor, select next keyframe, select next keyframe. I add an edit through everything, select next keyframe, select next keyframe. I do a ripple trim to the previous edit. I select the edit points where the playhead is at. Then I add the default transitions, which I use a default transition of 2 frames. And there you go. So that's my macro. All right, it's a good thing I stopped right here because as you can hear, Paul, he does that sound, when he stops and thinks of what he's about to say, right?
3, which I am.
When I do this kind of edit, you should do another ripple trim just to cut out that sound.
G3.
And again, I'm using the ripple trim to previous edit shortcut.
3, which I am using the.
So as you can see here.
3, which I am.
So instead of being.
3, which I am.
No, I cut it down.
3, which I am using the.
So it's a lot shorter, right? Now in this part here, it's a good spot to show you the benefit of using this method.
Just please bear that in mind, these pretty black cables. All
right, so I'm going to cut these guys out. Just for the record, if you have it selected that when you move the cursor, it automatically selects the clip where the cursor is at, that's going to cause problems, right? So be sure to go to sequence and deselect that right here. Selection follows playhead because that's just going to cause problems. You don't want that when you're doing this. I'm going to delete these 3 guys in a row. Let's hear it one more time before I do that.
Separately, just please bear that in mind, these pretty black cables. All
right, let's delete these.
Separately, just
this 1.
Bear that in mind.
This 2.
Black cables.
Now that I cut that out, let's hear how it sounds.
Just please bear that in mind, these pretty black cables. Other than that, VGAs, so that is sold separately. Just please bear that in mind, these pretty black cables.
So if you feel like the cut is a little too soon, I have a shortcut which is select edit at playhead, and then pretty much I can trim to the right a little bit like this.
Mind these pretty black cables.
The same thing here. Maybe it's a little too much. Just move it to the right.
Pretty black cables. Other than that,
for the most part, I don't really have that issue. All right, so I'm gonna end the video in this area here.
I left in the orientation they are purely for aesthetics, so don't.
All right, so let me cut these guys out.
Fans are aesthetic, so don't filter over on this side for these 3 fans. I left in the orientation they are purely for aesthetic, so don't hate on me for that.
All right, so you can hear pretty much like how it sounds, right? So it's like it's more obviously it's tighter, it's quicker, and all that stuff, and like it just helps keep the momentum going on the video. Also, the benefit of using this is basically it does shorten the video a lot. There's been projects where like the video's been up to maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and like by doing this, I was able to knock off like maybe 2 to 3, even up to 5 minutes, depending on the video, right? It does help, massively. And it's something that I do on all the pause videos. And the cool thing about it is there's only like a few frames that I'm removing. It's not that noticeable.
Just please bear that in mind, these pretty black cables. Other than that, which I am using the custom sleeve cable kit for these 3 fans. I left in the orientation they are purely for aesthetic, so don't hate on me for that. When I do fall
Depending on like how much you're cutting out and pretty much like how much of a movement Paul is doing and all this stuff, like you're gonna see a little bit like of a jump cut and all this stuff. However, I've been doing this for a while and I've noticed that nobody seems to complain about it whatsoever, right? So this is a total YouTube, I guess, or internet video accepted thing, seeing jump cuts, right? As long as the audio sounds like it's good and consistent and whatnot, people don't seem to care. Or what I do is basically see like there's like a lot of cuts one on top of each other. I usually cover that by adding B-roll, right? In this case, say like I'll add like a close up of like the computer that Paul is pointing out here. That way to cover up all the little jump cuts that you just saw, right? Okay, that's pretty much all I got for this video. I definitely hope it helps. Like I said, this is something I've been doing for a while, and like I guess I haven't really got to a point where like I felt comfortable enough to share it with you. The one macro or the one shortcut sequence I did to remove one audio gap, you can repeat it.
Time for our initial powering on of the system.
You can do that multiple, but the thing is, like, depending on your computer, how fast it's able to respond or whatever, like, sometimes the macro could be too fast for the computer to keep up, and it could mess things up, so, keep that in mind. All right, so that's all I got for this video. I do appreciate if, if you have any questions, let me know. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff, and also on a final note, if my videos has helped you out in any manner to increase your workflow and whatnot and to increase the quality of your video, I would appreciate it if you guys check out my PayPal link in the bottom. I like coffee, so treat me to a coffee as a thanks. I would appreciate that. All right, that's all I got. I'm going to work on making more videos for you guys, so stay tuned. All right, take care and peace.